my dear friend Josephine. She's back again. With always a huge crowd.
We did have a discussion about your history, how you became that.
Okay. Well, hello everybody.
Hi.
I'm so glad to be here tonight, and thank you all so much for coming. It really honors me. I really know that we all have amazing things to share, wonderful gifts to give, and so I really thank you for honoring me tonight with the position of being in the teacher place, but I know that I could learn just as much from any one of you at any time. So thank you so much for that. And I'm a firm believer in comfort, so if you need to get up and move around, go to the restroom, whatever, feel free. I won't think twice about it. And can you all hear me?
Yes.
You want a little louder? Can you hear me all right back there? Okay, great. So this is a gigantic topic, the subconscious mind. I mean, people devote their entire lives to this topic, and many books have been written on it, and chapters and workshops and intensives, and I've done just a little bit of studying into it compared to how many people are or have devoted their lives to it. So I'm going to do my best to try to get as much good quality information to you in, I guess now we're down to about, less than 40 minutes. So unless you'd like for me to include all my material and then we could stay just a little later. Is that what you'd like?
Yes.
Okay.
Later's fine.
All right, later is fine? All right, so then I'll just go for it because I've got an hour's worth of material for you, including about 5 minutes at the end for questions. So I'd like to start off with a family story because so much of what happens in our subconscious mind are beliefs that we get from our families. And the family story that I just love was one that happened to my aunt. And when she was a little girl, when she was a teenager actually, both of my grandparents, their mom and dad, were British, and they just had a belief that it was a good idea to send teenagers to live with somebody else for a little while. And what would happen when they would do that is the teenagers would gain a little more respect for their nice life with their parents, and they would be much more appreciative of all the gifts their parents did for them. So my dad went off to Colonel Culver's school, military school for boys. He hated it. And my aunt, very luckily, got to go live with a film star, Alyssa Landy, who she just loved. And Alyssa was quite famous, and she was about 16 or 17 or something at the time, maybe 18. And my Aunt Maureen was about 13. And Alyssa was just this most glamorous girl, just an amazing, really top star. And at one point, after about 3 days or so of being there, my aunt said to Alyssa's mother, she said, "Oh, Alyssa is so beautiful. I wish I could be like her." And Alyssa's mother turned to my aunt, who was a young girl, and she said, "No, Maureen, Alyssa is not beautiful. She's actually quite plain."
Wow.
And my aunt said, "Really?" And she said, "No, the thing of it is that Alyssa believes that she is the most beautiful woman in the room. And when she walks into a room, everybody else, that belief in herself is so powerful that everybody else aligns with that. Wow. And they acknowledge her as being the most beautiful woman in the room." Isn't that an extraordinary story?
Yeah.
So that was one of the stories that I grew up with. And we all grow up with stories. And I have this really great friend, Charlotte. She's a naturopath. And in her family, she grew up with some kind of, funky stories that she didn't really like very much. And she said that all she had to do was just get on her bike and ride down the street to a friend's house, and she was in a whole different reality. They had all these different beliefs and different ideas, and she could just enjoy those ideas for a while. And she still holds that very dear in her heart today, because that is one of her beliefs, that if ever things are not going very well, she just changes location or steps to the side a little bit of those beliefs. So that's kind of where I wanted to start, is how our beliefs can really influence our lives. And there's that new science of biology called epigenetics. And epigenetics is the study of how our biology creates our reality. And what happens is when we have certain beliefs, we can actually turn on genes or turn them off. So it's almost like if our genes were our arm and we had a sweater pulled down over them. We might pull a sweater up and reveal some of these genes or all of these genes, but it's our beliefs that control the sweater sleeve. And one of the points that is so explanatory of this is that when children are adopted into a family, they can receive the same amount of genetic propensity towards an inherited disease as the natural born children. So let's say that that family has a genetic propensity towards a really peculiar, unusual disease. Well, those adopted children have the same chance of getting that disease as the natural born children, the exact same chance. Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah.
Because they're in that family belief system. So we have a lot of belief systems, and they do come to us in a lot of different ways. And there are many ways to look at this. Like, for instance, we can consider ourselves to have a conscious mind, right? And then a superconscious mind, and then a subconscious mind. That's the terrain we're covering today. Some people would call that the higher self and the high self and low self. Some people would call it the conscious and the unconscious, or the collective unconscious. Well, the terms, so there's a lot of different terminologies. And the terminology that I'm going to use today is the superconscious, the conscious, and the subconscious mind. So the conscious mind, that's our decision maker. That's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to write that in my schedule book, Wednesday, 2 o'clock, that's what I'm going to do. Or yes, I've made this decision and I'm going to go ahead with it. Okay, that's the job of the conscious mind. The conscious mind also has an ability to think of the past and of the future. So it's not time bound. Time bound would mean it would be stuck in one time. It has a flexibility with time. Now the superconscious mind, that's our inspiration. That's our God-centered self. That's the slice of divinity that we each carry within us. This is where our inspiration comes. This is where we have our unique gift to give, whatever that might be. That's the realm and the domain of our superconscious mind. And it usually speaks to us through inspiration. We're like, oh, I would love to do that. You know, that's the superconscious mind. Or we wake up with a thought like, yeah, I'd love that. Oh, and sometimes it's even our most precious, dearest secret thing that we would love to do. But maybe we don't feel like we're good enough to, or we're worthy enough, or whatever might else be there. But it's often, can also be very precious and dear to us. That's the realm of the superconscious mind, inspiration. And the superconscious mind speaks to us through gentle suggestion. The voice of the superconscious mind is always neutral and compassionate. And you're like, oh, I could do that. You know, it's not like, you must do this. That's not the superconscious mind. The superconscious mind is that loving, gentle voice that we have within. And it thrills us. It gives us sort of a peaceful excitement. So that's the realm of the superconscious and the conscious. And now we get into the subconscious mind. And I think it was Jung who had a quote that was something like, the subconscious mind is everything that you're not aware of. Everything that you're not conscious of. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So our subconscious minds are blinking our eyes. They're beating our hearts. They're moving our intestines. They're making sure that the liver is going through all the complicated chemical mechanisms that the liver goes through. And the kidneys. And the blood is flowing. And we're healing a little scratch from the cat. We're doing all kinds of things that's going on. I mean, the power of this mind is gigantic. In fact, it's so big, they feel that it's like 95% of our brain power is in this realm. Now that's a tremendous amount of our being. It's only like 5% of our being is the conscious mind. We think it's everything, don't we? Like,
Yeah.
this is the whole story right here.
Not
But
even.
no, not even close. So there's this amazing asset that we all have within us, and that's the way I like to look at it, is this, I like to call it my beloved subconscious mind, my faithful friend, my dutiful servant. Because when we turn that baby into the direction we want, whoa, does it go. And it really flies, so it's great. So the subconscious mind often gets a bad rap, and I don't think it deserves it. It's just that it has these old beliefs that haven't been changed. And we're not usually aware of what those beliefs might be. So there's an interesting thing that happens. When we are small children, we are largely in a theta brainwave state. It's a lot like hypnosis or a hypnotic state. Maybe you haven't. I've been hypnotized. It's quite extraordinary. And, you're sort of like receptive, very yin, yes, what, ever. And that's how we are until the age of 7. We're receiving all of our information. And it's a very important thing that happens to us when we're children, because we need to learn about our family belief systems. We need to learn about our cultural belief systems. We need to learn our religious belief systems. We need to learn how to tie our shoes. We need to learn, get dressed in the morning, brush our teeth. All that stuff is learned. And I don't know if you can remember what it felt like the very first time you drove a car. Mm-hmm. You were like, full attention on board, right? Let's just really think about every single thing we're doing here. Well, then later we get kind of good at it, and it's like, okay, no problem here. And after a while, we can drive across town, have a detailed conversation with a friend about all sorts of subtle nuances and emotional things that are going on, and not remember if we stopped at Broad Street or took a left turn at Higuera or what we did. Well, that's because our dutiful subconscious mind took over for us and drove the car beautifully. It brushed our teeth for us. It shampooed our hair. It did all of that because it's the habit mind. It's also known as the habit mind. So it takes really good care of us. It's also responsible for all of our memory, and also gives to us our feelings and our emotions, what's going on with our emotional life. And then as well, it's responsible for receiving all of our psychic ability, any kind of psychic phenomenon, the subtle nuances, the gut feeling, or the knowing that we have. It's also in the realm of the body language. Something like 60% of our communication that we have happens through body language. It's like, that I am the king of Siam, and you will treat me that way, or else, oh, you're so great, and I'm just a little nobody, We do this subtly, and it's very subtle. This kind of body language can be very subtle, but we'll pick it up and we'll notice it. Our subconscious minds are watching all the time, so they're receiving not only psychic input, but also, body language input. And then the great thing is about the subconscious mind is its primary directive, the main thing it's here to do, is to grow. Oh, thank goodness for that. And it reasons logically. So our subconscious mind, we can work with it, we can encourage it to grow, and we can give it logical reasons for why it wants to grow, and it will do that. And then it also obeys orders. So if we make a decision, it'll follow through with it. So I have a little exercise that I'd like for us to do. And I'm going to do several little exercises tonight, just because it's nice to take just a little break. So this is naming our subconscious mind. Now, some of you may already have a name for your subconscious mind. I do. And my subconscious mind changed its name about 2 years ago. Just wanted a different one. That's okay. I can hang with that. So this is sort of like establishing a rapport with our subconscious mind, because after all, it is subconscious. So we have no clue about what's going on in our subconscious mind. So we have to kind of get started. And the way to get started is to begin the relationship. So I like to ask it for a name, what it would like to be called. It could be Harry or Jimmy Jump Up or Pony or anything. You just don't know what it might want. But the idea here is to just ask. So let's go ahead and take a minute and just get comfortable and close your eyes and just ask yourself, ask your subconscious mind, say, beloved subconscious mind, I'd like to get better acquainted with you. Could you just let me know what you would like to have as a name that I can call you with? And then trust the first thing that comes, and make a mental note. And just let yourself write that down somewhere in a private place later on. And the reason why is because this is a very tender relationship. This relationship between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is rather like the relationship between two lovers. A man and a woman, yin and yang. So go ahead and let yourself come back to your normal waking consciousness and open your eyes. And if you didn't yet receive a name, that's okay. Some subconscious minds are a little more reticent. That's all right. Just give it some more time. You know the exercise. You know what to do. And it'll go ahead and pop up a name for you. And then just trust the first thing that comes. So that's a nice place to get started. And let's see. Oh yes, so our subconscious mind can also have positive and negative complexes. These are in the lines of the beliefs that might be stored in the subconscious mind. So, for instance, one belief would be, the universe is friendly, and I'm always taken care of. That's a nice belief. Or, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. That's another belief. And so the subconscious mind holds all of our positive and our negative complexes. And another example would be the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. You know, we all have that one. We all have either one of those that we think about. And the subconscious mind is always seeking peace within itself. So one example that I read, in fact, I brought all of my teachers with me because I love them so. And so you're welcome to come up and look at these afterwards. And in this book here, Mastering Your Hidden Self, A Guide to the Huna Way, an amazing book on the subconscious mind. If you read this book, you really get a handle on it, by Serge Kahili King. And in that he has a story about this woman who was in a bad marriage and it was really uncomfortable. And she just didn't understand why she kept signing her maiden name on her checks. And then about 6 months later it became clear, and she went ahead and wound up going into a divorce time. And so the subconscious mind is seeking peace, is what that's about. It's looking for an easier way to go. And then it's always acting out of your best interest. It loves you. Your subconscious mind is trying to protect you all the time. And so a really good example of that is, like, let's say you just can't get enough money to make your needs met in the world, financially. Well, there was probably a belief in your childhood that came along at some point that said, you know what, if you have a lot of money, you're probably greedy and selfish, and that's really bad. And so the subconscious mind will protect you from that, and it'll prevent you from manifesting that which could hurt you or could bring you harm. So that's the great news, is that the subconscious mind is always acting in your favor. But there's some sort of old programming that's lurking there, deep in the subconscious mind, that you're not aware of. So how do we find out what programs we have in our lives? Well, we go to a little introspection. We look back through our lives, and we just see, what are the patterns? What has been repeated? You know, is there a time where do I always wind up feeling like I'm, have this problem repeatedly? Well, there's probably a subconscious mind program that's there for it. Or do I always have this great, amazing thing that is always true for me? There's probably a subconscious mind program there for that too. So just taking a look at your life is a great way to find out what's in your subconscious mind. And so that really calls us to the act of meditation. And I like to, this is one of my little slogans, know thyself. That's one of the things. If we can take time to reflect and look back in our lives, we can find out a lot about what's held in our subconscious minds. Now, another thing about the subconscious mind is that it dwells in the present moment. Everything is now. So whatever beliefs are there, it's like, this is it now. It doesn't really have that ability to go to the past or the future, so it's not omniscient. In other words, you wouldn't want to ask your subconscious mind for advice. I mean, you could get its opinion, like you would a dear friend, but you want to get your guidance or direction in life from your higher self. The subconscious mind can be nice information. So some people like to use a pendulum, and people use pendulums in different ways. I use a pendulum for my subconscious mind. That's how I use it. So I let it tell me, and my body is letting my subtle body movements tell me it's operating my intestines. It can certainly swing a pendulum. So that's how I use it. But different people have different methods, but that's the one that I learned, and Serge talks about that in his book. So I brought my notes because, like I said, it's a big subject. So the superconscious mind is the inspiration, and I've got a good example for that. So let's say there's a woman who wants to join the women's spirituality movement. She's really interested in joining in one of those circles of women that talk about the solstices and the equinoxes and all that, and she really wants to do that. She's like inspired. It's like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'd love to do it. Conscious mind checks the calendar. Yes, we can do that. That'd be great. Okay, ta-da, decision made. Done. We're going. The night comes for the women's circles, a full moon or whatever. Suddenly, little scratchy throat, starting to not feel so well, decides she doesn't want to spread the germs, only the joy, so she doesn't go. Subconscious mind coming up, old family beliefs maybe, perhaps even religious beliefs that were like, I'm not going to let you go there. That's not what we believe in our family. So that's an example of an outmoded belief that is still functioning.
Did you say that's from the subconscious?
That would be from the subconscious. So some people look upon the subconscious mind because of that as a saboteur. But it's not really a saboteur at all. It's a protector. It's taking care of you. And it's just operating on the most current information it has. So then here's the deal. So we want to change that information. So how do we change that information? So, back to some more positive programming. Mr. Hilton of Hilton Hotels, he started out, as the, what do you call it, the valet, and then he was hauling the bags around in the hotels and doing the luggage. And the whole time he was working in the hotel, he was thinking in his mind, I am going to own the best, most grandest hotel in the world. And he just held that thought in his mind. He knew it, he believed it, and then of course he manifested it because that was his deepest belief. So every thought that he had was like, oh yeah, you want to be, whatever, superior to me right now? You just wait, I am going to own this great hotel. So that's an example of a wonderful, and then athletes also, 3-day eventing horseback riders, they'll go out and they'll walk the course and they will imagine just how their horse, the number of strides coming up to that jump and how it's going to feel as they're sailing clearly over that obstacle. And they carry that with them and they telepathically communicate that to the horse. So they're moving as one and they just know what they're going to do. Same thing with jockeys running a race. They know how they're going to do it. They see themselves winning. That's how we begin to really enrich and nourish our subconscious minds, through giving these positive images of what we want to create. And unfortunately, so often we have a lot of negative self-talk, So there's another really good book over here called Talking to Yourself, Pamela Butler. And then, of course, the queen of positive thought, and Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. So amazing, wonderful ways to begin to change that self-talk so that it's positive. And if ever there's a struggle in our lives, something that we're having difficulty with, it's because we're lacking a positive program for that. It's just like your computer. You want to have certain programs for your computer, and if you don't have that application, well, you're in trouble. But you can get the application and you can install it. And that's the same thing that we do with our subconscious minds. There's an old program playing, we just want to update it and bring in the new material. So sometimes people will say, oh, it was just my destiny, this bad luck or whatever. No, it's just that you're lacking the program. So now it's easy for us to change our subconscious minds, fortunately, because they want to grow and they reason logically. So when I was a little girl, my mom used to say to me, don't step in a puddle or you'll catch a cold. Any of you have that one? Yeah. So that was one. So, and sometime around the age of 7, I decided, that's fluey. And that was the end of that. It never troubled me again. So sometimes we can make a quick change like that where it's just like, that just doesn't compute. New information, new reality. I can step in puddles all I want and I don't catch any colds. Okay, so that's one example. Another example would be, and this was a change that I did in my early adulthood. So one of the things that happened in my family was somehow I got elected to be the official peace officer. So if there was any little problem, like somebody brought over some children and they were eating all the chocolate on the Easter, and Josephine, there's those kids over there, they're eating all the chocolate. And so somehow it was my job, I'd like, okay, I'll walk over there, yes, all right, so now you children, now whose children are these? Now, we can't have them eating all the chocolates. And at one point I just thought, how did I get that job? I don't really want that job anymore. And so when people would come in and say, Josephine, there's some problem, I'd say, do something about it. If you don't like it, take responsibility for it. Do it. It doesn't bother me if they're eating all the chocolates. I don't care. So I just let that one go. So that was another example of how we can easily change. But there are some that get sort of stuck in there that are a little hard to change. Those are the ones we want to deal with. So for me, I can't tell you how many times I've quit eating sugar. You know, I mean, probably at least 100 anyway. It's like, all right, I'm done. I'm never gonna have sugar again. It keeps me up at night. I can't sleep, and you know, it's terrible for me. And then, you know, that's good for a week, 2, maybe 3. And then I'm somewhere, party or something. It's like, okay, all over again. I have to go through it. So that can happen too. So that when we have a program like that that's kind of stuck, that's what we're trying to get going. What we're trying to get going with on tonight. So now let's do another little exercise. So let's just go ahead and take a moment and get comfortable and close your eyes if you like. And think of a favorite memory, sometime, anytime in your past, something that you really loved. And just let yourself think of that memory. Could be from any age. And then make a mental note so that you can write that down in your journal later tonight. And then allow yourself to come back to your normal waking consciousness and stretch your body a little bit, move, open your eyes. Welcome back. That's a nice little exercise, isn't it? Now you just went into your subconscious mind because it is memory. And did you happen to notice how it felt like you were in that as if it was the present moment? Yeah, that's your subconscious mind. You were right there, you could feel it. This is what actors and actresses do. They call up those memories, and they've got a scene, they've got a play where they're really touched by something. They remember a time when they were really touched by something. They call up those memories. This is our subconscious mind, beautifully working for us. And so now just take a moment and say thank you, beloved subconscious mind, for that memory. So we want to always be thankful. So it's changeable and flexible, the subconscious mind. So let's go ahead and try on this idea. Well, Ram Dass tells a great story. I love this one. He says that, you know, he broke his ankle really badly, and the tendons and ligaments were all torn. Just kind of take a feel for that. See how that feels? That, ugh, ew, right? And then he says he did it right after he was done playing tennis. Oh, tennis, right? It's kind of interesting. So he's athletic. And then he says, in France. Oh, so he was in France playing tennis. Huh? That's kind of interesting. Wonder what he was doing there. And then he goes on to say, it happened when he was walking across the street on the way to his new Ferrari. Do you see what I mean? See how changeable we are? We're flexible. So now here's another example. Think about something that you believe, maybe politically, like you believe that we should be environmental or not environmental or whatever. And just let yourself sort of steep into that feeling for just a minute. And now switch to the exact opposite of that feeling. So if you thought you would like to be environmental, switch to what it would feel like to be not environmental. Just let yourself play a little bit here. And then switch back to your own belief. And I like to call this flexing our belief muscles. You know, we want to kind of stretch them a little bit, see what all we can play with. Because what we're going to do, if we're going to change some bad programming, not bad, but some programming that really doesn't serve us, I'll call it outmoded programming, we want to be a little bit flexible here. We want to be able to shift a little bit we don't want to hold on to our beliefs too tightly. We want to be able to let some of those go that we don't want anymore. So that's a little idea. Now, of course, comedians know this. You know, Charlie Chaplin, such a genius. And comedy always involved a little tragedy. Remember some of his movies, if ever you've seen them, we kind of shift a little bit back and forth. And it brings us to, you know, it's like the hills and valleys. You know, we kind of have to know a little sorrow in order to really feel joy. That's sort of along those lines. So here's a little homework assignment for you. I always like to give homework. And so what I'd like to ask you to do is sometime with your journal, tonight or another time, go ahead and make a little note, take a little meditation, and see if you can remember a not so great memory. Maybe see if you can remember 2 or 3. This is just a little know thyself, a little reflection. Take a look at who you are. See if you notice any patterns, like maybe you often feel, you know, like you're feeling rejected. Or maybe you often feel like you need to be in control, or it could be dangerous. So just to kind of notice for yourself. So we'll let you do that at home on your own time, because that's a great way for you just to take a look at what might be stored in your subconscious mind that you're totally unaware of. And now I've got, I forgot a couple of little quotes here. I always like to bring quotes. And would you believe it, I forgot to do the spiritual agreement that I like to do at the start of all of my teachings. So let's do it now, which is that together we acknowledge that everything that we think and that we say and that we do at this time will be of the highest good. And together we ask for truth, the understanding of that truth, and the wisdom to use it in our lives. Thank you for agreeing. Yeah. And so let's say that back when we were thinking about some of those things, like what a parent might say to us, sort of getting some early programming. I forgot to mention this earlier. So a parent might say, "Don't touch that." Lots of parents say that. And that might say to that little theta mind, hypnotic 7-year-old child, "Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not good enough." If we hear that a lot, we might really embrace that as a belief. It's not that it's a problem. It's not that our parents are bad. It's just that that's what they learned. And that these are patterns that go down through generations and generations. So we can have a lot of compassion for our parents. But just to realize that we maybe don't want that old programming anymore. Another example might be if the parent is distracted and they brush the child away. "I'm busy working." So that might be interpreted as I'm not important. Or if a parent says, "You really disappoint me," that can happen, right? So I'm not lovable. I'm not lovable. Or if a parent says, "Be quiet, go to your room. I'm too big. I have to make myself smaller." These are a lot of kind of common. So I put these up on the wall so that if you want to look at them afterwards, you can kind of take a peek. And then this lovely quote by Daniel Amen. He says, "Don't believe everything you hear, even in your own mind." That's such a good one, isn't it? Okay. And then let's see. I think there was maybe, no, that's probably about it. Oh, okay, here's one more. "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's Carl Jung. Isn't that great? So what we want to do is create new patterns. And we're here tonight talking about health. And so one of my favorite teachers is Dr. Richard Schultz. He's got Dr. Schultz's 20 Powerful Steps. And he's got a lot of beautiful things to say in here that can really help us to get in good order. So right here at the start, you want to drink pure water, have fresh vegetable juice. He's a real firm proponent of vegan food, and so am I when it comes to healing for detoxification. Live food, do bowel cleansing and detoxifications, and breathe deep and stretch and walk and do water therapy, wear natural clothing, all kinds of great things. So there's wonderful, new programs to download into your mind from lots of different sources. This is called Dr. Schultz's 20 Powerful Steps to a Healthier Life. And he is 1-800-HERB-DOC or www.herbdoc.com. And you can just go ahead and ask for these online and he'll happily send them out to you. He's got a lot of good books.
By the way, those are awesome products.
Oh my gosh, no fooling. I use them all the time. Yeah, so Joe Dispenza wrote a really good book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And we happen to have this book, but we looked all over the house today. We couldn't find it, or I would have brought it. So, and the idea there that he says is that when you start off your day the same way every time, you get out of the bed the same way, you put the same slippers on the same way, you go and brush your teeth the same way, it's good luck trying to make the next thing be a change. So he says, get out of bed on the other side, twirl around 3 times before you walk into the bathroom, get a different colored toothbrush, something like that, just to kind of get things warmed up and loosened up. And then I've got another wonderful book here. This book was written over 100 years ago, Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. And he speaks about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind in that term of the yin and yang idea. So the subconscious mind he considers to be more the yin, that great powerhouse of creativity, if we think of that womb just creating our lives. And the yang being a little more the conscious mind saying, let's do this program. And so there's that exchange of energy. The conscious mind gives the energy to the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind gives this amazing life to the conscious mind. So there's this lovely circle of energy that's going on between the two. And then, as I mentioned, Louise Hay with her ability, for us to learn how to do positive affirmations. And then Jampolsky, Love is Letting Go of Fear, and Your Life is a Gift by Ken Keyes. So there's a lot of good, these are just the books that I've selected, but there's many books out there that can really help us with changing these programs and really creating a new life for ourselves. And the idea here is to come from being that frustrated, disempowered victim to really gaining strength and moving ahead. So one of the tricks that we can do is, if we want to gain strength with our positive thoughts, well, one way that we can do that is to gain strength with our physical body. Okay, so we say, hey, look, I was able to gain strength in my physical body. I'm not so disempowered, I'm not such a victim anymore, I'm not so frustrated. So now I can gain strength with my mental thoughts, and where my habit mind is. And so in steps wonderful healers like Michelle Jang in the back of the room there with physical therapy to get our, this is like going in the back door. This is one way that we can start to make changes in our subconscious mind. And then there's a lot of different, what I call super learning techniques. So fortunately we have a couple of dear friends here in the audience today who do super learning techniques. Don Gerbrecht, right here, maybe you would stand up, Don. He does emotional freedom technique, or tapping. So if you're interested in learning some techniques that can help, see Don afterwards. Thank you, Don. Another one is Anno Kirkarian here, my darling friend and chiropractor, who is a fabulous healer. Maybe you could stand up, Anno, for just a minute, so that if anybody is interested. These are just some friends of mine that have these great super learning techniques. And so she works with total body modification, where you can literally erase the broken record that's in there. And it's so effective. It's like, poof, it's gone. Phew, nice, huh? Isn't that great? Yeah, same thing with the tapping, grief or something, you can just like say goodbye. And then Jane and Philip Montrose, also Mount Rose, are in our community, and they do what they call spiritual kinesiology. Unfortunately, Philip wasn't able to come tonight, but they're on the internet and wonderful helpers. So there's some, that's kind of what I look at as shortcuts. And then also our friend Zoe Wells, who's in this block. She's up on, what's this street up here? It's Palm, right down at the end at the corner, right by Palm in California. And she does wonderful homeopathy. And I think so does Anno, and also Bach flower remedies as well. So those are great things that we can do that can just really shift things quickly. So I just wanted to mention those wonderful helpers that we have in our community that can help us with this stuff. And then, like I said, affirmations can be really great. So here's some affirmations. I am beautiful, or I'm handsome. I love and honor myself. I'm more successful every day. I'm a worthy and valuable person. I love my life and my life loves me. It's nice to have those kind of programs running in our head instead of the horrible stuff that we sometimes get stuck with in there. So, then there's another technique that I really like, which is called conscious breathing. And these folks, Gay and Kathleen Hendricks, this was the earlier version of their book, Radiance, Breathwork, Movement, and Body-Centered Psychotherapy. And in it, they use a lot of different affirmations that are geared for like different age groups. Like, for instance, when you're about 1 year old, you want to learn that, I feel at ease wherever I go. And so they would have like a breathing technique where you're moving your body and, engaging the subconscious mind through the movement of the body, and then saying, I feel at ease wherever I go. Or I get my needs met easily. These are problems that can come up for us when we're 1, 2, 3, 4, very young people. And to try to get those problems erased out of that early body, it helps to engage the body. Or I connect easily with others. Or I explore my world safely. Let's say you didn't have that belief because of something that happened at the age of 1. So then you wouldn't maybe be crazy about traveling. So finding ways to kind of move beyond those little setups that happen. So now, I'm going to just move these flowers for a minute because I have this little roll down deal here. There we go. So here we go. Self-love and self-mastery. So how does that happen? Well, we unify the three. So here's our superconscious mind, our inspiration. I'd love to do it, and it feels kind of precious. And then here's our conscious mind saying, yeah, I'll decide, I'll commit, I'll make it a priority. And then here's our subconscious mind overcoming the blocks and fears, where we have all needs met. So now, in your stack of papers, somewhere that was on your chair is a little tiny paper. It looks like this. One of the little guys. And it's the A, B, C, D, E, F of overcoming blocks to the subconscious mind. So rummage around, see if you can find that. And if you can't find it now, it's in there. You can trust it. You'll come across it. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to allow ourselves to feel and find out why we're holding back. What is that problem that we have stuck in our subconscious mind? And then notice the pattern and find out, what it is. Once we notice the pattern, then we want to, yay, I found it out. I now know why I'm not comfortable traveling, because I've never felt safe exploring my world from the time I was 1. So then we can work with getting beyond that. So then you want to be assured and reassure yourself that you won't manifest the fear. Okay, you're not going to be injured or hurt if you do safely travel. If you do go out into the world, you're going to convince yourself, let yourself know. And the way that we reassure and assure ourselves is by finding convince yourself by finding plenty of positive examples of others who've succeeded. Well, lots of people do traveling all the time. It's just fine. They love it. It's okay. I can do it. I can do it just like so-and-so did. And then D, do your positive self-talk, right? And that's affirmations and prayers to help you change the belief. And this feeling is the secret, is so key. It has to be, this can't be by rote, like, I can travel safely in the world. I can travel safely in the world. That's not going to do a thing for you. But I can do this. I can travel safely in the world. That will do it for you. That's the way you get there. So then E, emotion. You have to really imbue your self-talk, your affirmations and your prayers with lots of positive emotion. And then F, feel it. Just like Hilton with his hotels. He knew it. It was totally his. It's that quote by Henry Ford, whatever you believe you can do or believe you can't do, you're always right. Whatever you believe is the truth. So we want to feel it. We want to know that this way of being is our reality and that it's here to stay. So that's our ABCs. Yay! That's the how-to. Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of simple. And then we have a nice William James quote here. Where is he? Ah, here he is. The greatest revolution of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives. Isn't that nice? It's a good one, isn't it? So the other idea is that you want to act as if ye have faith, and faith will be granted unto you. Or just move ahead with your life as if it's true. And then, so now we're talking about self-care, because we're talking about health and healing, and how our subconscious mind affects our health. So we have this John Assaroff quote, which he says, I just do not hang around anybody that I don't want to be with, period. Okay? For me, that's been a blessing, and I can stay positive. I hang around with people who are happy, who are growing, who want to learn, who don't mind saying sorry or thank you, and are having a fun time. It's a really good one, isn't it? Yeah, that's what we want. So now,
you think the whole martyr syndrome comes into it if you continue to stay with people or situations that are not good for you and that you don't appreciate and you know much better than to do it?
Yeah.
Is that something that you're doing to yourself?
It would be a good thing to take a look at. Yeah. And we'll talk a little more. Bring that question up at the end and we'll talk a little more about it. So now I've got a self-care checklist. So look in your little group of papers there. This is a little tool that I use regularly. I have had many renditions, and I just make them up, you know, when the time feels right, whatever I feel like I'm doing. So this is just an example. So here's the week of such and such. You can do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, put a little check, you know, if you did it. And you can see where you're kind of slouching, you know, where you're maybe not so good, you know. So I've got activities, rest and relaxation. One of the activities that I'll sometimes put on my self-care checklist that's not on this one is goofing around. You know, sometimes we just have to have some fun. We can, you know, we might think, oh, well, it's too unprofessional to do a lot of goofing around. But really, it can be a lot of fun. You know, it makes life worthwhile. And it really washes away the stress. So, you know, I'll chase Frank around the house, he'll chase me, or I'll defrost the freezer and get a bunch of that ice and we'll have a snowball fight. You know, anything like that. You know, just to kind of break it up, play, and have a good time. And then I didn't put on here, under rest and relaxation, meditation, prayer, sanctuary, and dream interpretation, because those are something that I do every day. Meditation, prayer, having a sanctuary where I can go and be by myself, and dream interpretation. So I don't really need those on my self-care checklist, because they're just a part of my life. And then another thing might be under rest and relaxation would be to play with our friends, or, you know, I've got down here personal visit or phone conversation. And, you know, that's a wonderful thing to do. It really lightens our load to share our whatever is troubling us with a friend. And then we enable them to bring in their kitchen table wisdom to let us know what they think about it. It's a great way for us to exchange and to help ourselves. And then down here, you know, I've got raw food and vegan, because I'm kind of head that way when I'm looking for healing myself. But everybody is different. And so there's a lot of different ways to heal yourself. And the Ayurvedic tradition is a beautiful tradition. We have Bob and Melanie Sachs in our community here, who are great teachers on that. There's a lot of health and healing consultants. Courtney Cookwell is another great resource that's in our local area, and she does a lot of bone broths and healing nutritional stuff. So there's lots of help out there. So I just mentioned that. And then also too, there's on the back side of this, you'll see there are some other beliefs. Isn't that a novel idea? So these are some beliefs that I just sort of cooked up. I was inspired by the work of Max Freedom Long, who was mentioned in Serge Kahuli King's book. And so I kind of came up with my own set, and I just wanted to share them with you so that you can take a look at them at your own time and see, oh, maybe I'd like to embrace that belief.
Max Freedom Long.
Yeah, Max Freedom Long. It's some nice work in the 40s, I think it was. Okay, now, where am I?
Trust the universe.
Trust the universe. It's a good thing. So, we're getting right near the end of the time here, so I will just start to kind of wrap us up a little bit. So, we do want to express ourselves. There is something else that I wanted to read out. It was a paragraph, and I seem to have lost it. But it had to do with, here it is, reprogramming our beloved subconscious minds. So I'll take this back up again afterwards if you want to take a look at it, you can. So first you want to let yourself feel while you're holding back. What is causing you to stick with the old behavior, right? And so let's say in this case it's not appropriately nurturing yourself. So that's one of the things that happens when we're troubled about our health. We're not taking adequate care of ourselves. So the block could very well be an old program or a belief that no longer serves you well. So it could be something that perhaps your parents believed, like, if you focus on yourself, you're being prideful and selfish and not taking the time to meet your other familial or social obligations, or maybe even religious obligations. So that's the first step. Identify the block. What's holding you back? And it could be any number of things. Who knows what it might be. I need comfort, or I have that little rebel in me that I don't let out any other time, you know, whatever it is. So just to find that. Then second, you want to reassure yourself that if you do nurture yourself, you will not be doing it for inflated reasons of self-importance or pride or uncharitable reasons, nor will you be neglecting the well-being of others. So that's what you want to do. You want to assure yourself that all the needs will be met. And then you'll remember to be humble and generous and loving with others, and also loving with yourself. And then third, you want to repeatedly find examples about how good the new behavior can be. And it does not have to include the negative aspects. So in this example, you know, you would show yourself examples of people who are very good at loving themselves and taking good care of themselves, and who are not pretentious, and who are very generous with their time, and they're kind and loving and helpful. So that would be a good thing, to flood yourself with images of those who do take good care of themselves. And then let yourself spend lots of time with good people who also happen to be very good at self-care and at appropriately nurturing themselves. And then fourth, do your positive self-talk, your affirmations. Some people like to do subliminal tapes. They record their voice with their affirmations and fall asleep to that. Or do your your shortcuts of super learning techniques like I mentioned with Anna or Dawn or Zoe or anybody else who you know of, or Dawn and Philip and Jane Mountrose. And then fifth, you want to just really imbue it with emotions. So that's how we do it. That's how we change our programs in our subconscious mind that are no longer serving us well. And then we want to express ourselves, we want to laugh, we want to do art. You know, sometimes we are taught that, you know, doing that sort of thing is frivolous. It's not frivolous. It heals us, it feeds us, and it inspires others. So whatever that belief is, we want to let that go and then just realize that when we do that, that faithful friend that is within us, our beloved subconscious mind, that 95% of our brain power gets going on something like that. We're not even aware of it, and boom, off you go. So, you know, why not have the belief that I'm totally healthy all the time, nothing ever bothers me, I heal perfectly. Yeah, I might have a bump or a bruise sometime down the line, but then it's all over with and I'm good. Nice kind of a belief, and it doesn't even have to be consciously aware of it, it'll just create itself. So, with that, my last quote here, by W.H. Murray. This is an amazing book, The Scottish Himalayan Expedition. It's wonderful. It's like these guys who went hiking in the Himalayas and climbed all these mountains. And it's a wonderful read. And he said, this quote is often attributed to Goethe, but he said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth that ignorance of kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no one could have dreamed would have come their way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Isn't that great? It's a wonderful, wonderful quote. So when we believe it, we transmit it. So thank you. What I'd like to do is to just allow a few minutes for questions, if that's all right. Okay, good. And I also wanted to mention I have a couple more little flyers and handouts there for you. So I have a radio show, and this little flyer is it. It's free. It's online. You can listen. It's weekly. And I'd like to just introduce my Step Into Magic crew. It's Tony Taylor here is my co-host. Maybe you'd stand up and take a bow. and Einer here is my videographer and helps me with all sorts of things. Anything technical. Like yesterday we called us help. Einer comes running over to the rescue. And then Frank, my darling husband in the back, who, none of this would be possible without him. Yay, Frank! And so there's that. And then also, too, I have this little,
and the radio show is fabulous.
Thank you!
Hello.
And
you can listen to it anytime.
It's called, you just go to on the internet and you just type in Step Into Magic. And if you'd like, I've got this little fill-out thing here if you want to print slowly and carefully your name, your email address, and if you'd like me to have your postal mailing address also, this little piece of paper here. And I will go ahead and include you on my weekly email list, which lets you know the topic of the radio show. And then there's a link right there you can click to go right to the show.
We have a basket. We have a basket where you signed in. A white basket where you can put those right there. Justin has it. It'll be at the front.
Okay, great. Yeah, so you can just drop these in there. And also the radio show in March of this year was all on the subconscious mind. So I did 4 weeks of the subconscious mind with Tony by my side. And so there's a lot of information there. And then, like I said, feel free to visit with Bob or Dawn or Anno afterwards. And I haven't seen Bob Banner here, but he's great at laughter yoga. So I just wanted to mention him too. He's great at a lot of things. And as in closing, well, first of all, does anybody have any questions? Yes, Anita.
I was just wondering, when you're working on stopping a habit.
Yeah.
And then if it comes to you in your dream, that's the subconscious working. I mean,
Yes.
here I thought I had stopped that habit, but then in the dream,
It was there.
it was there, so
Right.
that's a sabotage.
And not totally though, it's just
Oh.
letting you know that it's still present. It's like, another example that I like to use is that of a smoker. So every night after dinner, we've had a cigarette for the last 25 years. You're not gonna have a cigarette tonight? It always calms us, makes us feel calmer. Are you sure you don't wanna have a cigarette? Just your dream time is saying, wait a minute, are you sure? Don't you remember? We used to do this all the time. Just checking, you know? I mean, and so with the smoking, I have a friend who stopped smoking by reading this one book by Alan Carr, and I'm forgetting the title of it right now. It's something like the Foolproof Way to Quit Smoking, ALLANCARR. And every chapter is like, smoking is terrible because of this. Smoking is terrible because of this. Smoking is terrible because of this. Oh my God, smoking is terrible because of this. And, the subconscious mind reasons logically and it obeys orders. And if you make it through that whole book, you're like, I am not smoking. So, but the subconscious mind is going to dutifully say, are you sure? Because that calmed us down. It made us feel good after dinner. Instead, you say, no, emphysema and lung machines, those are not calming. We don't want that. What's calming is a nice brisk walk after dinner. Or sitting with my dog and having a little pet. Or making some nice, aperitif that is medicinal. Whatever. Finding something else that can calm you. Does anybody else have a question? I hope that answered your question.
Yes, that's great.
And also our superconscious mind can give us images in our dream time.
So that's what I actually did. I talked to my subconscious in
Great.
that ways by saying, no, I have stopped that.
You've moved beyond. Excellent. Good job. Yeah, just reassuring it. No, we're not going to do that. Yes.
I have a question. I have
Yes.
small children, and so I'm thinking of this from their perspective to not
Yeah.
pass on like generational stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if I kind of work through my own stuff and clear my stuff,
Yeah.
that probably won't pass down to them. But what
That's
are
right.
some other things that we can do to like prevent passing this on to generation
Yeah.
to generation?
Great. So identifying the patterns in the first place is really good. The other thing is what Bruce Lipton talks about is that when we fall in love, we are fully present. We are paying absolute attention to every detail. We're dressing ourselves perfectly. We're checking. We're not doing anything by rote, right? Everything is right in the present moment. So if you bring your conscious mind right to the present moment, you're going to be thinking about exactly what you want to do, inspired by your superconscious self, and really creating that in your life right now. So many people often, when they're with their children, they get so accustomed to them that they go into automatic pilot. And that's when those patterns can come down the line. But if you're really present with your children, oh, we're going to put the beloved pet in the grave right now. Think of how present you are with something like that. Or, yes, darling, your hair, we're going to brush it. That's the way you can stay out of your subconscious mind, old programming, and right into, because that's where you are really occupying that territory, where the subconscious mind dwells in the now. And if the conscious mind is in the now, then the subconscious mind is going to yield to the conscious mind's programming, what you're putting in right now. Because that's its nature, to obey, to listen to, pay attention to. It's only there when we're not paying attention that we can get into trouble with it. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
So pay attention.
I know, right? But I hear the belief in my head, like you're saying this, and I'm like, but I have 3 kids and I homeschool. How can I be present at every single moment?
Right.
And so,
Right. You need a
but
village.
then I'm like, but that's just a limited belief that I believe that I can't be present at that moment. So
Right. Exactly.
that's my how am I
That's
going to
right.
do it? But my
You know what,
all at the same moment.
At the same moment. It's exactly right. Yes.
I was thinking
Excellent.
one little tool I found every now and then, it may sound strange, but mirrors
Mirrors are
are
great.
beautiful. They bring in light.
Yes.
And I think we do so many things without seeing ourselves doing it.
Yeah.
And if you put mirrors around you, and you're bound to notice, and suddenly it's like either you're watching yourself as an outsider or you recognize what you're doing as an insect, whatever. I think mirrors are really great.
That's a great suggestion. Yeah.
For a little.
Yes.
In what way do you speak to your subconscious? I mean, do you speak like another person? Do you speak
Yes, I
as
do.
yourself? I mean, what do you?
I do. I usually, I'll say something like, beloved subconscious mind, you know, I've noticed that lately you've been thinking this really scary thought. Now, you know, this really scary thought, we know that it's generative and that it can create that scary result. So how about this thought instead? And I'll just sit down now. Now, do you see why this thought is maybe a superior thought, or a better, not superior, but a better thought for us to use? And then I'll work with that thought instead. And then I'll say, well, now is there any problem with that? Well, my subconscious mind, I might have a feeling like, yeah, nice thought, but good luck, you know, that's not going to happen. So then I think, well, now, why is that good luck that's not going to happen? Well, because when I was 3, don't you remember? I had this terrible thing that happened when I tried. Okay, so now I'm not 3 anymore, and I'm not in that situation where my brothers were trying to do whatever, or whatever it might have been, some story, you know. So I don't have to follow by that. Do you understand that? And don't you think that it would be nice to have this other outcome instead? Oh yes, okay, now we could have this other outcome because, look, here's all these other people who do it. And so why don't we change this negative, scary thought to this really nice thought instead? And then I take notes about those feelings and where I went. So I actually draw myself like a little tree, like here's the scary thought, and then here's the nicer thought, and then here's the problems with the nicer thought, and then this problem went away by going to this good thought, and this problem went away by going to, no, we didn't quite get it. There were 2 more scary thoughts under that one. So I make myself this little tree, and I keep that in my journal. And then, you know, usually after I've done that nice thorough process with my subconscious mind, believe me, that scary thought is gone for quite some time now. Let's say 3 or 4, 6 months later, it's like, you sure you don't want to be scared about this? You know, because we were scared about this before. I'll go back to my journal, I'll say, no, look, take a look, remember? We figured this out. We got this other better thought going, and this is much nicer, don't you think? It's so much nicer to have, you know, a brother who lives a nice, long, healthy life than a brother who's going to decline or something like that. You know, I mean, we get these, what if so-and-so was to go? You know, it's like, no, what? We got to stop terrorizing ourselves. And so we can do this. We can.
So this can be used with anything, any stuck.
Anything stuck, yeah. So like here's a book called Stuck. Why we can't and won't move on. Here's another one, Breaking the Pattern. Here's the Checklist Manifesto. You know, here's Anatomy of an Illness. You know, Norman Cousins, a beautiful book. And then here's, you know, Ram Dass, Be Here Now. You know, how to come to the present moment. Reclaiming Our Health and the Food Revolution and Healthy at 100. So there's some really great things here for you to take a look at. But with that, I see we've got to go. So let's just have a final closing blessing, which is that as our gifts are given in love, they are received in love. And we honor their wise use and their increase for all concerned. And thank you so much for the gift of your time today. Thank you.